All right, everyone get ready. We're diving deep into soft skills today. And I'm not talking about like cozy blankets or anything. We're going way beyond just, the buzzword. We're going to find out why they're so important for your career, like your secret weapon, you know?
I'm with you. I love the energy. It's true, we hear about soft skills all the time, but we don't often really get into the details.
Right.
You sent over some really interesting research on this.
Exactly. We're on a mission here. We're going to sift through all this stuff and find the really useful stuff about soft skills that you can actually use.
Because, and this is important, soft skills aren't just these, fluffy extras.
Yeah.
Research shows they can actually determine if you get promoted or how well your team works together.
Hold on. Really? There's actual studies on this. I always thought it was more of a, gut feeling kind of thing.
Oh, it's way more than just a gut feeling. We'll look at those studies later. But first, let's start with the basics. What exactly are soft skills?
Yeah, but let's define it. I feel like everyone uses that term, but they all mean something different.
You're right. Think of it this way. Hard skills are your technical skills, like coding or analyzing data, or writing a really good marketing plan. It's the what you do.
Okay.
But soft skills are more like the how.
So, I could be an amazing programmer,
Right.
but if I can't explain my code to my team,
Uh-huh.
it's not going to be very helpful, is it?
Exactly. Soft skills are those personal qualities that help you communicate, work with others, solve problems, and just generally navigate any workplace, any situation, really.
Makes sense. But why are they all of a sudden so important? Haven't they always been a thing?
They have been. But things are changing, automation, AI, remote work. All this is changing how we work.
Yeah.
And it requires a whole new set of skills.
That's not enough to just be technically good anymore.
Nope. Not at all. Robots can do the routine stuff, but it's the human skills, like being able to adapt, to connect with people, to think critically. Those are the things that will make you stand out.
So soft skills are our superpower.
You got it. That's where they really shine.
This is really interesting. So which soft skills should our listeners be focusing on? Are some more important than others?
Well, the good news is the articles you shared all highlighted three really important ones. They were communication, teamwork, and being adaptable and a good problem solver.
Okay, I can handle that. 3, let's start with communication. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but how do we actually get better at it?
Well, remember, communication isn't just talking.
Right.
It's about really listening, understanding what people mean even when they're not saying it, and being able to change your style depending on who you're talking to.
Oh, you know what? This reminds me of something I read. It said that only 7% of communication is the actual words we say.
Wow.
The rest is our tone of voice and body language. Isn't that crazy?
It really shows how much we communicate without even realizing it, right? That's why knowing yourself is so important. Pay attention to how you sound, how you stand, even your facial expressions. They all send a message.
So even on a Zoom call where you're just a tiny box on a screen, that stuff still matters.
Absolutely. It might matter even more online because there are fewer visual cues, right?
Yeah.
So a real smile, nodding along, making eye contact, even through the camera, that all makes a difference.
Okay, I'm making a note to stop slouching my next Zoom meeting. What else can we do to improve our communication?
Asking open-ended questions is really powerful. Instead of asking, do you agree? Try saying, what do you think about this approach?
So you're not just shutting down the conversation.
Right?
You're inviting them to actually share their thoughts. And you get more valuable input.
Exactly. Oh, and don't forget about writing clearly and concisely, whether it's emails, reports, even quick messages. Structure, clarity, and proofread everything. A typo can make you look, well, not so good.
You're telling me, all right, communication, check. What about teamwork and collaboration?
Collaboration is all about working well with others to achieve a common goal. Imagine, a rowing team. Everyone has to be in sync, pulling their weight, communicating clearly to reach the finish line.
What happens if one person tries to do their own thing? The boat's going to go off course.
Exactly. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen at work? Well, first, we need to understand that collaboration isn't about winning or losing. It's about finding solutions that work for everyone.
Okay, so it's putting the we before the me.
Exactly. And a big part of that is respecting different opinions. You don't have to agree with everything, but you have to acknowledge other perspectives and focus on finding common ground.
And don't be afraid to offer help. Even something small like, hey, let me know if you need help with that. I've done this before. That can make a difference.
It shows you care about the team succeeding, not just about your own tasks. Which brings us to our next skill, Being adaptable and a good problem solver. The world changes so fast these days, so being able to adapt and find creative solutions is super important.
It's like playing Tetris. But the pieces keep changing shape, and you have to figure out how to make them fit.
I love that. It really does show how important it is to have a system for solving
So we're
problems.
not just, like, freaking out and hoping for the best.
No, no, the sources you shared all had this really helpful framework.
Yeah.
First, define the problem. Then, think of all the possible solutions without judging them.
Got it.
Then you evaluate those solutions, like what's actually doable, what resources do you have, what could go wrong, and finally, you put the chosen plan into action.
It's like having a map to help you navigate tricky situations. All right, communication, teamwork, adaptability, check, check, check. Anything else our listeners absolutely need to know?
You know, all the articles mention one more thing that's becoming really important in the workplace, and it ties into everything else we've talked about. It's called emotional intelligence, or EQ.
EQ, I hear that everywhere.
Right.
But what does it actually mean, like practically?
EQ is being aware of your own emotions and understanding other people's emotions too. It's being able to read a room, to empathize, to control your own reactions, and just like navigate the emotional side of things.
Okay, so it's not just about being nice. It's about using that emotional awareness to communicate better and build stronger relationships.
That's it. Imagine you're giving a presentation and you notice someone in the audience looks confused.
Okay,
Someone with high EQ would pick up on that, change their approach, maybe even ask if there are any questions.
so they're not just plowing through their presentation. They're paying attention to the room and adapting. Makes sense.
And that's why EQ is becoming so important. It's a sign of good leadership, good teamwork, and even good customer service.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. Okay, I'm adding develop my EQ to my to-do list.
Good idea. Now, to really understand all of this, let's look at different communication styles in the workplace.
This is where it's interesting. You know, our source material actually outlines 4 main styles: assertive, aggressive, passive, and passive-aggressive. You know what? It's like they're characters at a dinner party.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Imagine this. The assertive communicator is the host of the party. They're making sure everyone feels comfortable and heard. They're direct, but respectful. They say what they need and what they think, but they also listen to what others have to say.
They set the tone for a nice, balanced evening. So, who's the aggressive communicator in our dinner party?
They're the guest who dominates the conversation, interrupts everyone, and just like steamrolls anyone who disagrees with them. They're probably loud, opinionated, and make other people feel intimidated.
Definitely not who you want at your party. So then there's the passive communicator. They're probably sitting quietly in the corner, not really saying what they think or what they need.
Right. They agree with everything, even
Yeah.
when they don't. And then later, they're probably resentful or feeling misunderstood. They might be afraid of conflict or just don't want to cause trouble.
And last but not least, we have the passive-aggressive communicator. They show their anger or frustration indirectly, which just makes everything confusing and tense.
Ooh, they're the ones making snide remarks and giving backhanded compliments.
Yes.
You know, like, oh, that's an interesting outfit choice.
You can just feel the tension when they're around.
Right.
But of all these styles, assertive communication seems to be the best, right?
It does seem like the most effective way to get your point across. Clearly, respectfully, without, offending anyone.
You're right. It's generally the best way, especially at work. But it's important to remember that sometimes you need to adjust depending on the situation. You wouldn't be assertive when you're giving someone bad news or if they're really emotional, right?
Right, right. It's about being adaptable, like we talked about before. Reading the room.
Now, let's get down to business and talk about common communication challenges at work.
Because, let's be real, even with the best intentions, things can get messy. Our sources all talked about 3 main hurdles: language barriers, communication when you're working remotely, and conflict resolution.
These are the biggest problems for teams, and they lead to frustration, misunderstandings, and everyone getting less done. Let's start with language barriers. In today's world, lots of us face this every day.
And it's not just different languages.
Right.
Sometimes it's jargon, technical terms, or even slang that can be confusing.
Exactly. If English isn't your first language, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. And even if it is your first language, be careful with jargon. Would someone outside your field understand what you're saying? If not, simplify it.
So everyone should avoid using too much corporate speak, not just people who speak English as a second language.
Definitely. Clear communication helps everyone. Okay, now let's talk about remote work communication. This has become a big challenge, especially in the last few years.
It's easy to feel disconnected when you're not physically in the same place.
And it's easy for misunderstandings to happen when you're just relying on emails, chats, and video calls. One tip that really helps is to over-communicate.
Over-communicate.
Yeah. Regularly check in with people, be clear about what needs to be done and by when, and make sure everyone is on the same page. That can prevent a lot of problems later.
And don't forget about video calls. They help you connect with people on a more human level and pick up on those nonverbal cues we talked about.
It's true. Seeing someone's face, even on a screen, can make a huge difference. It helps you build relationships and understand their tone. Okay, the last challenge we'll tackle is conflict resolution. Let's face it, conflict happens everywhere, especially at work. It's how you deal with it that matters.
I think most people try to avoid conflict at all costs. But I'm getting the feeling that's not the best way.
You're right. Ignoring problems just makes them worse later on.
Yeah.
One of the best tips from the articles is to address issues right away, as soon as they come up.
Nip it in the bud before it becomes a huge problem.
Exactly. And when you do have those difficult conversations, stick to the facts, focus on the solution, and avoid blaming people.
So instead of saying, you messed this up, say something like, we need to figure out how to fix this problem.
Much better. And even if you don't agree with them, try to see things from their perspective.
Oh.
Just saying, I understand why you're frustrated, can help calm things down.
Okay, we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. We defined soft skills, talked about why they're so important, and even looked at some common challenges and how to deal with them.
This is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll get even more practical. We'll look at specific steps you can take to improve your soft skills and see the real benefits in your career and life.
Can't wait. We'll be right back. We're back and ready for more soft skills secrets.
Yeah, let's do it. Before the break, we were talking about how crucial these skills are these days.
Right. Especially with how fast the working world is changing. We set the stage, and now it's time to, actually build the house. So how do we level up these skills?
Good question. The sources all talked about three main ways: asking for feedback, going to workshops, or training. And this one's really interesting, watching people who are really good at communicating in action.
Okay, let's start with feedback. It can be a little scary to ask for, but I've learned that the right feedback can really make a difference.
Totally. And the key is, don't wait for your annual review or something. Be proactive. Go to your manager, your colleagues, even mentors you trust, and ask for specific advice on things you want to improve.
Like, if I'm having trouble getting people to support my ideas in meetings, I could ask a colleague who's a really good presenter, hey, can you watch my next pitch and tell me how I can be more persuasive?
Perfect example. The more specific you are, the better the feedback will be. And don't just sit there and take notes. Ask questions, have a conversation about it. It's about using that feedback to actually grow.
Got it. Okay, what about workshops and training? Is that really worth it?
It can be, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially if you find programs that are designed well and are relevant to your goals. A lot of companies offer professional development stuff focused on communication, leadership, conflict resolution, all that good stuff we've been talking about.
And even if your company doesn't have those resources, there are tons of online courses these days. You can learn at your own pace and on your own time. Actually, I took this great online course last year on active listening.
Oh, cool.
And it really helped me, both at work and in my personal life.
I love that about online courses. There's something for everyone,
Yeah.
from public speaking to emotional intelligence. And you can learn from your couch.
Now, this next strategy really caught my attention, observing skilled communicators. It's like learning by osmosis.
Right. We all know those people who just seem to have a natural talent for communication.
Right.
They're persuasive, empathetic. They handle tough conversations so well. Like, they're communication ninjas.
Okay, I'm imagining a big meeting, things are getting tense, and then this communication ninja comes in, tells a perfectly timed joke, smiles, and everything just calms down.
Exactly. So how do we learn from these masters? Pay attention to them. How do they run meetings? How do they give presentations, give feedback, deal with tricky situations? What words do they use? How do they structure their communication? What's their body language like?
It's like taking notes during a master class.
Right.
And then you try to use those techniques in your own way, right?
Right. But remember, it's not about copying them exactly. It's about finding what works for you and developing your own authentic style.
That brings up a good point. I've heard people say that focusing on soft skills feels fake, like you're putting on an act. What do you think about that?
I get it. It's a valid concern. But here's the thing. Being truly authentic means being true to yourself, your values, and your communication style. Soft skills don't change who you are. They just give you the tools to express yourself more effectively and connect with people better.
It's like learning a new language. You're not changing your thoughts, just finding a better way to say them.
Exactly. And don't forget, developing these skills takes time. It's a journey, not a destination. You're always learning, adapting, and improving.
Speaking of journeys, let's talk about the destination, the payoff for all this effort. Why should we bother with soft skills anyway?
Well, the benefits are huge. We talked about some of them before. But research shows that good communication at work leads to more productivity, a better company culture, and everyone loves this one, better career opportunities.
Okay, those sound pretty good to me. Tell me more. How does that actually work in the real world?
Think about it. When teams communicate well, there are fewer misunderstandings. People waste less time trying to figure out what they need to do,
Yeah.
and they can focus on actually getting things done.
Which means projects get finished on time, deadlines are met, everyone's less stressed, and the company does better overall.
Exactly, and it creates this ripple effect. When communication is clear and respectful, it builds trust, collaboration, and a sense of purpose. That's what makes a really positive and engaging work environment.
And who wouldn't want to work in a place like that?
Right. People want to feel valued, heard, and respected. And that leads to happier employees, less turnover, and a more attractive workplace for top talent.
Okay, so happier employees and a more successful company. Got it. But what about better career opportunities? How do soft skills help with that?
Think about the people who get promoted or get offered leadership roles. What qualities do they have? Often it's not just their technical skills, it's their ability to communicate well, build relationships, inspire others, and handle difficult situations smoothly.
So those soft skills become like a secret weapon in their career.
Exactly. They're seen as more valuable to the company because they can not only do the job, but they can also lead and inspire others.
Okay, you've convinced me. Soft skills are worth the effort. Can you give me an example, a real-life situation where these skills make a difference?
Sure. Let's say there's a project team that's behind schedule and having some conflicts. The deadline is coming up fast, everyone's stressed, and the whole project might fail.
Uh-oh, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. What happens next?
Well, the manager knows they need to step in, so they call a meeting.
Good idea. Get everyone together and talk it out.
But here's where the soft skills come in. Instead of yelling at the team or just telling them what to do, the manager uses their soft skills to handle the situation with empathy.
Okay, tell me more. What do they do?
First, they create a space where everyone feels comfortable talking openly. They listen to each team member's concerns without interrupting.
Okay.
They acknowledge how everyone's feeling, saying things like, I know we're all under pressure with this deadline.
That's so important. It shows that they care about the team, not just about finishing the project.
Right. And then instead of focusing on the problems, they shift the focus to solutions. They say something like, let's brainstorm how we can redistribute tasks and resources to meet the deadline.
Turning a crisis into a chance to collaborate.
Exactly. And finally, they remind the team of their strengths, saying something like, we've overcome challenges like this before. We can do it again if we work together.
They're like a communication superhero, saving the day with their soft skills.
Exactly. And what's the result? The team feels heard, they're motivated to find solutions, they meet the deadline, and the project is a success.
Wow, that's a great example of how soft skills can turn a bad situation into a good one.
It really shows how communication, empathy, and problem solving aren't just nice-to-haves. They're essential for success in any field.
Okay, so let's recap what we covered in this part of our deep dive.
We talked about 3 practical ways to improve soft skills: asking for feedback, going to workshops or training, and watching how skilled communicators do it.
We also busted the myth that focusing on soft skills is being fake.
And we emphasized that good communication has real benefits: more productivity, a better company culture, and better career opportunities.
Plus, we got that awesome story of the manager who used their soft skills to save the day.
Now, in the last part of our deep dive, we'll share some bonus tips and leave you with some interesting questions to think about.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into soft skills. Are you ready for some bonus tips to really master this stuff?
Definitely. We've covered a lot, but I have a few more nuggets of wisdom that can really help you communicate and connect better with people.
I love those extra little hacks. What's the first one on our list?
This might seem obvious, but it's easy to forget. Pay attention to your body language.
Ah, yes. Body language. It's like this silent language we all speak.
Right.
And sometimes I think it says more than our words.
Exactly. Your posture, your eye contact, your facial expressions, even your hand gestures, they all send a message. And people are always picking up on those cues, whether they realize it or not.
So, like, if I say, yes, I'd love to take on that extra project, but my face is like totally cringing. People aren't going to believe me.
Exactly. And that mismatch between what you're saying and how you're acting can cause confusion and make people not trust you. To show confidence and that you're really engaged, keep good posture, make eye contact, and use hand gestures on purpose.
And don't forget about smiling. A real smile can instantly make you more approachable and likable. Even if you're feeling stressed, smiling can actually trick your brain into feeling a bit happier.
It's true. There's actually research that shows that. It's called the facial feedback hypothesis. So even if you don't feel like it, smiling can improve your mood and make a good impression on others.
Okay, I'm smiling. What's our next bonus tip?
This one builds on what we were just talking about. Be mindful of your tone of voice. It can totally change how your message comes across.
Oh, I do this all the time. I'll send an email and then realize later that it probably sounded way harsher than I meant it to.
We've all been there. Tone is super important when you're writing because you don't have those visual cues to help people understand what you mean.
So, how do we make sure our tone is right?
Read your emails out loud before you send them. Think about the words you're using. Are you being too formal or too casual? Could your message be interpreted in a way you didn't intend?
Those are great tips. I'm going to start doing that for sure. What else do we have?
This one is all about asking good questions. It sounds simple, but asking questions in a thoughtful way is a really powerful communication tool.
I love that phrase, the art of inquiry. It sounds so much more sophisticated than just asking questions. So how do we become masters of inquiry?
Well, first, remember that asking good questions shows you're curious, you want to learn, and you respect the other person's point of view. It shows you're really listening and interested in what they have to say.
And it helps you learn new things, clear up misunderstandings, and avoid those awkward moments where you're like, wait, what did you just say?
Exactly. Instead of asking yes/no questions that can end the conversation, try asking open-ended questions. So instead of asking, did you like the presentation? Ask, what were your key takeaways from the presentation?
Oh, that's so much better. It encourages a more thoughtful answer and gives you more useful information.
And don't be afraid to ask follow-up questions to show that you're really listening and understanding. Things like, can you tell me more about that? Or what made you think that?
This is great stuff. Okay, give me one more tip.
This last one is a bit more personal. Be your own advocate.
Ooh, I like that. What does that mean in terms of soft skills?
It means knowing your strengths, being able to communicate your value, and standing up for what you need and what you want to achieve.
So it's not just about communicating well. It's about using those communication skills to empower yourself in your career.
You got it. It's about having the confidence to speak up, to ask for what you deserve, whether it's a raise, a promotion, or more challenging projects.
And to show off your skills. Don't be afraid to share your ideas, volunteer for exciting projects, and highlight your accomplishments in a way that feels authentic and real, of course.
Exactly. And remember, being your own advocate also means asking for help when you need it. Don't be afraid to reach out to mentors, colleagues, or your manager when you're struggling or feeling stuck.
It's about realizing that you're not alone in this. You have people who can support you and help you succeed.
That's right. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into soft skills.
Wow, we covered so much. I feel like my head is full of new ideas and strategies, but I also feel like we really explored every aspect of this topic.
I agree. It's been a great journey, and I hope our listeners feel ready to go out there and use these skills.
But before we go, I think it's important to remember that this is just the start. Developing soft skills is an ongoing process. It never really ends.
You're right. It's about making a conscious effort to practice these skills every day, both at work and in our personal lives.
And with that in mind, let's leave our listeners with some final things to think about, some questions to help them reflect on how soft skills show up in their own lives.
I love that. It's all about giving them the power to continue learning on their own. What's the first comment?
Well, we've been talking a lot about work, but it's important to ask, how do soft skills show up in your personal life? How do they affect your relationships with your friends, family, partners?
That's a great one. It's easy to forget, but these skills really do affect every part of our lives. Think about how communication, empathy, and conflict resolution are part of your personal relationships.
And here's another question. What's one specific soft skill you want to work on? Choose one that really speaks to you. whether it's active listening, assertive communication, giving helpful feedback, or managing your emotions better.
Make an effort to practice that skill every day. Set small goals for yourself and celebrate your progress as you go.
And lastly, let's leave our listeners with this big picture question. How can you use your soft skills to make a positive impact on the world?
Wow, that's a powerful question. It's easy to get caught up in our own lives and careers, but it's important to remember that soft skills aren't just about personal gain. They're about building connections, understanding each other better, and creating a more harmonious and productive society.
So think about how you can use your communication skills to support causes you believe in, to mentor others, or even just to spread kindness and positivity in your everyday life.
There are so many possibilities. And remember, even small acts of kindness and connection can make a big difference. It all adds up to create a more positive and compassionate world.
So that's it, our deep dive into soft skills, those essential qualities for success and happiness in all parts of your life.
We hope this has inspired you to embrace communication, empathy, and connection. And to remember that these skills aren't just nice to have, they're essential for reaching your full potential.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into something interesting and important. Until then, keep those conversations going, those connections strong, and those soft skills shining.